You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Charge upon the land, a population burned up, bled dry. The marginalized multiply and unite to fight. You ring of the world, now they're tearing you apart.
Good morning, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. I'm here with my co-host, David Story. And on the line, we've got Tom Hope. Tom had run for city council, and he's a libertarian. I think y'all will remember. And he spoke actually with the Libertarian Party's presidential nominee, and he's got. I mean, honestly, it's like really crazy. We were talking about it earlier this week, and you know, he said something about calling in, and I said, yeah, you know, absolutely, because you know, I can't remember when the last time we talked about like freedom of speech is, or when the last time that we talked about freedom of speech, but that's something that David and I are both we're both very passionate about it because and if you look into the history of how we got the broad freedom of speech rights that we have now, the freedom of speech that we have now was not the result of the enlightened liberals of the founding writing something on a piece of paper and bequeathing it to us lowly peasants out of their benevolence. It was the result of bloody struggles in the streets, largely by trade unionists against people like the people who founded this country, against the Supreme Court, against politicians and bosses and people who were trying and oftentimes succeeding in putting people in prison and killing people for their speech. So I like to think of myself in that tradition, in a very, very pro freedom of speech tradition, in the tradition that my union brothers and sisters paved the way before me 100 years ago. So it's a very important topic. And so Tom, I'm just going to hand the ball off to you and let you talk about it, because it really upset me when I heard it.
Yeah, thank you so much for you and David having me back on. I got a little feedback in the phone here, so bear with me if it sounds a little funny. But essentially, let's say that we had Hallie Hawkins confirm today that he could come and speak in Huntsville next Sunday. We wouldn't be able to apply for the permit with anybody until Monday morning with Parks and Rec and HPD. So I had the same exact thing happen 2 weeks ago today with Dr. Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian nominee. Monday morning, we applied for a permit with Parks and Rec and got approved almost instantly. I was running some errands. I dropped a hard copy of the application off with HPD. Heard back on Wednesday they wouldn't be able to, schedule officers to block off streets and let us march and everything. Totally understandable. I have to schedule people for work as well, and I don't like to mess with anybody's lives like that. But they really stuck to the fact that they would not issue us a permit to have amplified sound. And the ordinance here at the city of Huntsville is any amplified sound that can be heard 25 feet away in direct line of sight. So essentially, if you're walking in public and your cell phone rings that can be heard, you're going to be in violation of this ordinance. But they just really stuck to their guns. This was something I feel like, in my opinion, they could have approved all the way up to the day of the event. We were told that they needed 7 days notice to approve it. Other times we were told 14 days, other times 3 weeks. And if you look at the language on their website, its permits are granted on a first-come, first-served basis, just as Parks and Rec, who approved it within about the hour of us submitting the application. So I got cited, went to court earlier this week.
Wow.
And we got a trial date set for December, but I'm going to hope to get it tossed out. I'm going to speak to some other people and see if I can get some better understanding of the situation. But essentially, we were censored from having a presidential candidate come and speak to a crowd of people in the time of COVID, where we're supposed to have 6 feet distancing. They made us turn the volume down, and the officers didn't seem to have a care in the world about the fact that we had to get people closer than 6 feet to each other. So it's just an all-around squirrely situation.
A presidential candidate. I mean, what? That's amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing to me.
Yes,
and Tom, when we were talking. Yeah, Tom, when we were talking earlier this week, you mentioned like if Trump came or if Trump had talked to the Madison County GOP and was like, hey, I want to be in Huntsville in a week, in a day, and I want to speak in Big Spring Park, like, would the HPD really deny that permit to to Donald Trump, or to Joe Biden? I mean, that's it. It seems really unlikely to me.
Sure. I mean, just look what happened February 4 years ago when he came and spoke in Madison.
Yeah.
That ended up costing the city of Madison over $30,000. But basically, at the drop of a hat, they shut down the interstates and everything to have the event.
Yeah.
And they didn't cite them for it.
Not that I'm aware of. I know there was some talks internally, I understand, about not approving it, but at the end of the day, they let it happen very last minute, and all we were looking for here was just the permit to have sound.
Right.
Man.
In a park on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. What I you know, I don't know what it's coming to. I mean, it sounds dramatic. It sounds overly dramatic, but honestly, yeah, if the First Amendment rights are not there to protect people to come out into the public square and have their voice heard, I don't know what it is, you know. And I'm not even a big fan of this whole permit thing. I mean, it's public property, you know. And I understand they want to schedule people and things like that, but man, you hadn't got anybody scheduled and you're just going to deny it and say you can't, no audio equipment whatsoever, not even like a small carry around microphone with a small speaker. It's sickening.
Yeah, and then, I mean, we had up to 9 cars there watching us the entire event. There was a crowd of roughly 200 people. You know, we're all disgruntled with the government, but it could not have gone more peacefully. I mean, there wasn't even a piece of trash for our volunteers to pick up after the event.
Yeah, who's not disgruntled with the government right now?
Fair enough, yeah. I mean, I'll make some strong points there right before the break.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
yeah, and then I wanted to point out, too, it wasn't just a presidential candidate. It was a presidential candidate that made the ballot here in Alabama last week, and also happens to be a woman on the 100th anniversary week of the 19th Amendment. So, you know, it's something we could have been very proud of as a city, and instead, you know, it just adds a stain to the situation, in my opinion.
And it really bothers, I didn't know about it, but it really bothers me because I'm voting third party. I mean, there's no doubt and I'm sitting here for the last month tossing back and forth Green, who are fairly organized labor supportive, you know, with the Teamsters, but I'm also I've tossed back and forth the Libertarian as well, because I kind of can go both ways. I'm not really ideological sound except for on liberty. That's my main focus as always, and it infuriates me. I don't get it.
I'm with you, brother.
I don't get it. Whew, man.
Yeah, I don't know, Tom. We appreciate the call.
Absolutely. Thank you for having
thanks
me.
for calling in. And Jeff, if you're out there, brother, I apologize for hanging up on you. I am struggling like crazy in here trying to get to the phones and keep everything running. Call us back. Jeff with the UAW, he had called in a while ago and wanted to talk for a little bit. And
okay.
While Tom was on the phone, I grabbed it back up to ask him what his name was again, and then, of course, hung up on him. So.
Yeah, Jeff, our number is 1-866-494-9866. Give us a call back.
Yeah. We're about a minute and a half.
Yeah, so we got like about a minute and a half left. We'll probably take you on the other side of the break if you call back now. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm very pro freedom of speech, and all these like with the June 1st and June 3rd protests, they were like, oh well, the police told them to leave, why didn't they just leave? And it's like they were on the public sidewalks. You don't have to have a permit. No law says you have to have a permit to be on the sidewalks demonstrating after an event. There was no curfew in Alabama, and so it's like, screw you, bootlicker. Why should I have to? Like, why? I mean, there was no before we before we were told to disperse, there was not a single instance, not a single one of violence or property destruction. Not a single one. And the only incidents of property destruction during that whole protest was at the Coffee Clutch. And from the way that it looks and from where the Coffee Clutch was and from where the police were, it looks like that was a stray rubber bullet from the cops. And the protesters raised money to pay the coffee shop back. And the coffee shop said it was only $800 and we raised $2,000, and we just gave them the whole thing. And so it's like there's this whole I mean, and it's supposed to be the people that are saying, oh, well, why didn't you just leave? They're the same folks who are supposed to be the freedom-loving, authority-hating, government-hating Americans. And then
Lonely dead, stuck, bleeding pig. Lonely dead, shot, shoes to dead. Inside.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. I apologize with Jacob getting cut off there, but we were running into a commercial break, and apparently he couldn't hear the bumper music, so I'll try to get us in and out of commercials, out of the segments a little bit easier. Yeah, if you'll just take a breath, quit your ass. Give me a second.
Yeah. Well, all I was saying, and I'll just wrap it up really quickly, but yeah, like it just makes me so mad that the folks who are ostensibly so pro-liberty, anti-government, pro-small government, pro-freedom, freedom over everything else, freedom uber alles, they're the ones who are like, oh, well, the agents of the state told you to go home, so why didn't you go home? Oh, you mean you weren't being violent? You weren't being, disruptive? You were just, it doesn't matter. The agents of the state told you to go home. Why didn't you just go home? I mean, it's just so hip. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your time. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week and get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments throughout the week. And we also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So you can see if we're on your listening platform of choice. You can go to The Valley Labor Report. transistor.fm/subscribe. And if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, then consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report.